So in the beginning of 2002, I was still in high school. I was 17 years old. I was also working at grocery stores 2 blocks from my mom's house. And I think I was taking regular course load in high school. Then about a month and a half into 2002, smoked pot for the first time with some of my friends, and I felt like I had been, more than anything, I felt like I had been missing out. So when I started to do that, it was just about like, well, everyone else is doing this, so I should get to too. But when I actually smoked the stuff, I had no idea what was going to happen. I remember hallucinating and having visions, and like almost walking in front of a car in the road. It had a really strong effect on me. And then I went home and I cooked dinner for everyone. And my mom says, "Why are you talking like a stoner?" But then about 2 days later, I called up uncle that showed me his plants when I was a kid. He was divorced from the aunt by that point, but he always had pot, and he wasn't afraid to cut me a deal. And I became someone who smoked a little bit every day. I didn't think it was very much. My medical doctor, on the other hand, thought I was smoking a whole lot, so he wanted me to start going to specialists and find out what all that's about. So I guess it's not normal for a person who's 17 years old to smoke that much. And I didn't have health care. I didn't have health insurance, but I was working at the grocery store, and if I took more hours at work, they'd give me the benefits. So I ended up becoming a cashier and taking on more hours. I got the health care, but I had to drop out of school in order to work that much. So I made it about 5 semesters into high school before dropping out completely. And my priorities were really for my health. I was in terrible pain randomly. I'd have these attacks where it's like getting punched straight in the stomach by someone really strong. And, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat anything without a few bites just tearing me up. So I dropped out. I got health care. Kept smoking pot. That summer, though, on the internet, this kind of weird thing happened. I'd always been in this online forum for, I guess you'd call us mentally ill young people, or people who struggle with mental illness would be another way to say it. And I had never wanted to try any psychiatric medication, but when people started arguing on there whether or not medical marijuana, or it was just marijuana was considered a medication for us, I substantiated that everything that they've said about medication applies to what I was doing for just my own mind. And the benefits far outweighed the drawbacks. Before I knew it, I was 17 years old and I was advocating for medical marijuana. And that wasn't the intention at all. The intention was to share information about something that was helping me. So, I turned 18 that year. All the friends I had grown up with were seniors in high school, and I was a dropout. You know, they're looking for colleges, and it's basically just struggling to get through to the next doctor's appointment. The day after I turned 18, I was diagnosed with a combination of malrotation of the gut and Crohn's disease. Most people know what Crohn's disease is. It's an inflammatory bowel disease. It's kind of like arthritis of the intestinal tract. The other thing, malrotation of the gut's pretty rare. Only about 5 out of 1 million people are diagnosed with that every year. And what that means is my small gut isn't attached to my abdomen. So all of my organs are just kind of free floating in there. In fact, I remember when the radiologist was doing the contrast examination, starts pointing out like, okay, well, this is your esophagus, this is, and then she's like, oh, that's not right. You might have a little and then she turns the monitor away, so I can't see it. She stops talking about what she's observing, because at that point she realized that me seeing the way that my gut actually looks would make it harder for me to eat. So the grocery store, the owner's son of the place, was kind of a big pothead, drug addict dude. And he and his friends knew a doctor that would write medical marijuana recommendations. And I have been asking my regular care doctors, gastroenterologist, primary care doctor, about that, and they would either tell me they'd lose their license for recommending it. That's BS, but I was going about it the wrong way. The truth is that a regular doctor doesn't have the education on marijuana that a specialist does, and some people think that these specialists are just someone you can go to with any problem and they'll write you a recommendation like it's crooked. It's not like that. You go there with substantial medical evidence that you are suffering from conditions that marijuana can alleviate, then that doctor knows, and that doctor can say, yeah, here's a note, come back in 1 year or less and see me again, and I'll write you another one if you need it. I didn't quite appreciate how bad I had it at that point and how rare my condition was, or is. All I really cared about was, what do I need to do to get my life back on track? I still thought that I'd end up going back into high school and going to college and, driving around and doing all those normal things. But also, when I was diagnosed the day after my birthday, the doctor gave me corticosteroids called prednisone, started me on an immunosuppressant drug called azathioprine or Imuran, the kind of stuff that they give people for organ transplants. And I'm like, well, how's this supposed to make me get better? I don't really know. I'll just do it anyway. So I got so sick that within 5 months of starting to take medication for Crohn's disease, I was too ill to keep up with the hours that it required for healthcare, and by the October diagnosed, by next April, I had to quit working. So at that point, April 2003, I was dropped out of high school, couldn't work the job anymore at the grocery store, and hurting like hell. So I stopped taking the medication that the doctor was giving me because no health care anymore. What am I supposed to do? And my family was concerned that I was getting a little bit too into the medical pot thing. I was going back and forth to Oakland because Sacramento didn't have dispensaries at that point. I had to go all the way to Oakland on Amtrak. I had a little bit of money that my grandparents had given everyone in the family. We each got like so many $1,000s to come of age with. And after that would go, I didn't know how I was going to live. So I moved to Louisiana. And in Louisiana, there is no medical marijuana. There's hardly any marijuana. I didn't smoke at all the entire time I was there. I was in Louisiana for 4 months that year, and I came back probably as thin as I ever did. First thing I did when I got back was to California was to call back the medical marijuana doctor and see him for the second time. Start going to Oakland, but going to Oakland wasn't good enough. I started to realize that there were a lot of people in the same position I was in, and that if I didn't do something, I'd be just waiting for someone else to do something. And so I founded Urban Compassion that year. We started printing out information leaflets on different ways people can use marijuana, that it's more medicinal than just how people party with it. And before I knew it, there were patients coming to me not necessarily for the information, but for the medicine itself. And from that point, it was really up to me to find out the best way to turn raw marijuana into a usable medicine. Something like a capsule that can be easily recognized as something you take to get better. Whereas, here's this green stuff in a bag. Like, what the heck am I supposed to do with it? I didn't know how to roll joints. It was like handing a kid a gun. But that's 2002, 2003. I went from being 5 semesters into high school and very influential in the visual and performing arts radio department to being gone in a whole different world. And I never went back.